And so the Kino came here and the Klondike stayed there. And it's a really interesting trip the Kino had because she's been dry docked for 9 years. This was 9 years. So they said, how are we going to get her back here? So they said, well, why don't we try putting her back in the water? Let's fix her up. Let's bring her here the way she used to be. So they fixed her up. They brought back the old crew that used to be on the Kino. One of the pilots, Frank Slim, who was a First Nations man who also brought the North Pond Ferry here in 1960. Very important. And so they actually sailed her all the way from Whitehorse back to Dawson here in 1950. And so she was truly the last boat on the river. Commercially, it was 50. Now in the front there, in here would have been the boiler. This was a boat that burned wood and created steam. They all burned. So the wood would be burning inside a boiler, and the steam would go back to the window, and that would turn the wheel, and it would then turn the wheel. So wood, they needed a lot of wood. They burned wood. Especially going upriver, it would take 4 days to get to Whitehorse. A day and a half to come down. Now, a cliff of wood is 4 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet. That's like a meter and a half by my cabin across the river, I burned 5. This Kino, which was one of the smaller boats, burned 1.5 an hour. So you can imagine there weren't trees left here. They cut them all down. And there was never enough room to put all the wood you needed, so they had to put camps everywhere. All over, more wood, more wood. Not a good time to be a tree. So they burned wood in order to create the steam that turned the wheel. And if they were pushing a barge, for instance, the Kino could take 120 tons of weight. But a barge could add an extra 200 tons. That's great. And in case you were carrying something dangerous like dynamite, that was out front. You're not carrying that in the boat. In fact, they would fly a white flag to let people know we got dynamite. A lot of the other boats would just pull over. Let you go back. You have the right of way, exactly. So anything and everything was brought up here by these boats. Now on the second level there, those were rooms for the crew. They're really small. It's really tight to them. That much. And so the crew, and maybe passengers if they were going to Dawson and back, but again the Kino was more the working boat. The third level there is called the Texas deck. That would have been for the captain and for any of the higher up, so to speak, or if somebody was signing on who wanted first class, that would have been up there. And then the pilot house at the top. Now upstairs on the second level was also the kitchen, the galley. So they were able to provide meals for the crew and for any passengers that they did have. Pretty simple. They did have to cook. So in general, this Kino had about 23 staff. It was the captain, the pilot, there. It was the engineer in the back with the engines and his crew. There was a purser who was in charge of administration and supplies. There were the bowmen. There was the firemen putting wood into that boiler. There were crew members. There were up to 23 people. And that's small compared to the bigger boats that were out there. SS Klondike was much bigger. In fact, that was the biggest boat in the fleet of the British Yukon Navigation Company, and the Kino was the smallest. But you still needed those people. And wherever they worked, they slept. So the cook and the crew were up in the kitchen, they slept there. The purser was up on the second floor, he slept there. The engineer, they slept there. Everybody slept where they worked. And it was non-stop. For instance, as good as a pilot can be and knows this river well, you still sometimes get into trouble. If, for instance, you're stuck on a sandbar or a gravel bar, you have to try to get off. And you have several options to try. First of all, if you're stuck, you could try to reverse the wheel and back up. And if you could do that, okay, keep going. Now, if you couldn't do that, they had another option. option called grasshoppering. So they had a 40-foot pole that they would attach, one on one side, one on the other. They would then rev up the wheel and they push the whole thing up onto those two posts, which was really nerve-wracking, as that whole boat is hanging on these two 40-foot posts. And then they go forward. So it's almost like a sick grasshopper, why they call it grasshopper. So they would basically try to lurch their way off. That was one way. And you never stop. Once you started, you did not stop. You could go 36 hours, you had to get off. So the crew gets no sleep. Now if that didn't work, pushing that barge, you could maybe jackknife the barge, put it right against you so that it pulls the boat off. That could maybe work. And if that didn't work, pack up. This boat is finished. You'll take out the engines because they were unusable. You'll take out your supplies and you put the boat there to business. So it was in your best interest to try to get away from any of those sandbars or gravel bars, and also the foam. Nice. Most of these boats are back to white bars. Any questions? Various companies, and some say up to 200 stern wheelers in one season from 1898 up and down. So at that point, there were about 30 different types of stern wheelers. But eventually, just the BOINC and the other one became in 1966. And they gave less than 200. Pretty much one way to go. Because again, white horse and back, it's either 4 days or a day and a half. So that's not too bad. The only people, the shifts were different depending on your job. The only ones that had the short shifts were the firemen, the ones putting wood into the boiler. That was a hot job. So they worked 4 hours on, 8 hours off. But everybody else had their own shift depending on their job. Because the pilot had full control of the river. Captain had full control of everybody else and everything else. So he was the big boss. The pilot's the one who's taking care of being on the river and navigating. So really the captain was the big boss. But it was in his interest to listen to the pilot. Definitely. So it was the firemen who had control of how much water. You always have to keep that boiler full. If it's empty and you're baking it, that's not a good idea. You also have to make sure the pressure was correct. The firemen have to make sure the pressure, because if not, the whole thing could blow. And who's going to get it first but the captain up there in the pilot house, right? Poof! There's actually a story once of a boiler blowing, and that pilot house went all the way to shore. Yeah, you don't want to go there. And so in the engine room are various pumps that help you bring the water from the river to the boiler, coming back again as steam. So it was a cycle. There was also a generator in there that steam powered would create electricity on board as well, and various other little things to help you operate the boat. Yeah, and so these boats were also important in linking the communities along the river. There were people living along the river who had no other connection other than these boats. So they would fly a white flag and the boats would pull over and they'd take mail or they would take passengers. And once the highway was built, all those communities moved into the near the road. And for a long time, this was your only connection, not only to the outside world. Oh, you're lucky I didn't do this. I'm going to hit you. I talk like this, you know. So for a very long time, not only were you lifelines to the outside, you were lifelines to the That all ended in 55, and now we have the SSPR here as a story to tell just how this would not be what it is today without these books. We're going to have a party on Saturday. Yes, we've got a party happening to celebrate the 100 years. So we'll see what that happens. We're planning it. So we'll see what happens. And then after that, we'll go back to our daily tours. So hopefully you've got a little bit of information to go in, but hopefully you imagine it a little bit. And that's the end of our visit.